What's going on, everyone? This is your host, Rafal Matuszewski, for a special episode this week. We are going over the CARS morning routine, aka the controlled articular rotations, which is essentially we are taking each and every joint through its entirety of its workspace, which will then build up the integrity of your joints. Essentially, you should be doing this every single day, multiple times a day, and within your warm-ups, your cool-downs, and anywhere else you can fit it in. So we're gonna get into it right away, and we're gonna go from the top to bottom, starting with our neck. So follow along. This is gonna be less of an educational thing and more of like follow along to a mobility workout. So the first thing we're going to do is our neck CARS. So standing nice and straight, our hands are going to be out by our side, and we're going to try to relax the rest of our body. And we're going to start with the neck. We're going to start looking down. I'm going to drag the chin to the left or right, start drawing that big circle all the way around over to the other side, nice and slow. Back to the center, and you're going to come back the same way you came. As we're doing this, you're not looking for speed. You're trying to go nice and slow, because the slower you go, the more information you are sending back to the brain, back to the joints within our neck, and it allows our body to learn and have a stronger connection for movement. We're going to do a couple more here. We're going to aim for about 3 to 5 reps for every single joint we go through. And this entire little mobility session should take less than 10 minutes, unless I start talking way too much. So aim for one more, nice and slow. We're still breathing. Back. And good. Perfect. So the next thing is we're going to go into our scapulas or our shoulder blades. So our hands are going to be by our sides here. And what I want you to think of is you're going to slide your hands into your front pockets while bringing your shoulders in front. From there, your shoulders are going to come up towards your ears. From there, you're going to think of squeezing those shoulder blades together, aiming your hands into your back pockets and sliding them down. And then from there, you're going to come back up towards the ceiling and back and front. So big shoulder rolls, nice and slow and controlled. As we're doing this, you're making sure that you're not bending your elbows, which is a sign that you're cheating because you don't have enough mobility within those shoulder blades. So we're going to go nice and slow, back and forth, thinking of trying to gain a little bit more range every time we do this. So we're coming up, behind, squeezing. And again, speed is not your friend as we go through. We're breathing, we're moving. And as we go through, you also want to kind of notice what you're feeling. Is there a lot of cracking? Is there maybe a sharp pinch somewhere? These are all clues of how your joint is doing at that current time and space. And good. So from there, we're going to move to our thoracic spine. So what I want to see is just this section moving through everything else compared to, say, your lower back or your hips. So a couple things that we're going to do is the entire time you're going to squeeze your glutes and hold this nice and tight, kind of like if you're doing a glute bridge at the top and you're holding for a second, because if we lose this, then our lumbar spine is going to move quite a bit. So what we're going to do is cross the arms. You can either go into a cross like this, or you can pull your entire body, because what we want to do is round the shoulders forward so we have a lot of freedom through that spine. As we do this, you want to think of coming down into a mini crunch with just the top portion of your spine. From there, you're going to rotate left or right as far as possible. From here, you're going to tilt backwards as far as possible. And then from this position, you're going to make your way over to the other side, nice and slow, mimicking that same little rotation we did. We're back to the center, and you're coming back the same way you came. As we do this, I still want you to visualize we're only moving through the top portion of your spine. If you're starting to do this with your hips, you're doing it wrong. I'm going to give you a different angle. We're coming down into that mini crunch. Rotate, extend back, making your way over to the other side. Down, back, forward, and again. Back. We're breathing. We're still squeezing our glutes as we go through. Breathe. If you find any painful spots, you might be just losing tension. So again, squeezing those glutes. I'm going to go a little bit closer so you can see. Coming down forward, rotating right or left, extending back. In that extended position, making our way over to the other side, down, and forward, and back. Breathing still. We're moving through. And back this way. Last time, all the way through. And good. Perfect. So from there, we're going to go into our shoulder cars. So what I want to see is we're going to start with our right hand. Your other hand can go out to the side, on your hip, behind, whatever you want to do. But with this right hand, we're going to have it out to the side. And what we're going to do is come across the body into adduction. And then you're going to drive your arm up towards the ceiling. As you get up towards the ceiling and you're trying to aim as far back as possible, you're going to start reaching the arm behind you and rotating it at the same time. So when I get to here, I'm already halfway rotated with my shoulder. And I'm coming all the way down and behind. And now my knuckles are facing towards my hip and leg. From there, I'm going to reverse that motion. Nice and slow. We're rotating, 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 and we're coming back to where we started. We're going to do a couple more, and I'm going to talk about a couple things you need to make sure you're doing. As we're going through, I want to see only motion at the shoulder and not your torso. A lot of people will open up this way. You want to think of having both shoulders facing forward as we go through in the shoulder car. The other thing that I want to see is as you're going through, you're trying to go as slow as possible in those points that feel kind of sticky, that feel kind of not normal, a little awkward, because a lot of people don't utilize that shoulder the way they should on a daily basis. And your brain and the connective tissue around the shoulder kind of have a weak signaling system. So the more we can do this, the better of a connection you're going to develop and a better, healthier shoulder you're going to have to do things in the gym like shoulder presses, pull-ups, kettlebell swings, snatches, you name it. The other thing I want you to think of, and we're still going, is as we're going through, if you do find any painful spots, don't try to go through it. Draw a smaller circle with your shoulder. As we do that, we kind of send a signal again to our nervous system and brain that it's safe to move our shoulder through those ranges. A lot of times when we do shoulder cars, hip cars, whatever it is, you want to constantly feed our system, aka our brain and nervous system, that what we're doing is safe, and then it'll allow us to develop better motion at the joint. And good. So now we're going to switch over to the other side. Another thing I want you to think of as we go through our next arm is as we're reaching back, this portion here, as we rotate back, this is internal rotation. As we go through, I want you to rotate, 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 and go as slow as possible, because the stuff back here, for most people's shoulders, it kind of falls apart and it kind of goes too quickly. So the slower you can go, the better. And I've already said that in the very beginning of this video. The slower, the better. Honestly, try not to go as fast as possible. Slow is always better when it comes to cars. And breathe. And again, same little tip with when we were doing our thoracic spine cars. If you can squeeze your glutes, if you can root your feet into the ground, the better. Just breathe. Doing good. Last one here. All right, so next up is our elbows. We're gonna have both arms out to the side like this. You can either have fingers glued together and straight, or fists, whatever you prefer. What we're gonna do in this position is we're gonna go into a bicep curl. When you get to here, you're thinking of getting as much elbow flexion as possible. From there, you're gonna rotate forward as far as possible. We're gonna go back down, kind of like a reverse bicep curl. From there, we're gonna come back up, and then rotate again, and then back down. We're gonna repeat the process, but as we do it and we rotate, try to get as much pronation as possible as we go through to really work that elbow joint. Because again, when was the last time you've actually worked your elbows? Probably never, other than doing bicep curls. But our elbows can do so much more than just flexion and extension, but they can also rotate, and it's very, very important that we practice this over and over again. We're gonna do one more. We're breathing, we're moving, and perfect. Next one is our wrists. We're gonna get a little bit closer here so you guys can see. So with this, I want your elbows glued to my rib cage. Fingers are going to be glued together, and what I want to see is our wrists going through a full range of motion. But the thing that a lot of people make a huge mistake is when they go through and they get to a tight spot, they let their forearms rotate. So I don't want this to rotate at all. This is going to stay up. So if you look at my tattoos, they're going to stay up towards the ceiling the whole time. You can imagine your phone on your forearm and you don't want it to fall. So what we're going to do is come down with the hands into the center, up towards the ceiling, and out to the side. Into the center, up towards the ceiling, out to the side. Nice and slow. And we're watching our forearms to make sure they don't rotate over like that. We're trying to keep them up towards the ceiling. Slow and steady. We're breathing. And now let's reverse it in the other direction. Nice and slow. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Keep moving and keep grooving. Couple more here. And good. Perfect. So the next thing we're going to do is hip carve. So we're going to do this in a standing position. We're going to hold on to the wall, and our outside leg is the working leg. So you're going to take that outside leg and cross it over to the other side of your other leg. So what we're going to aim to do first is you're going to drive your ankle and knee up as high as possible. From there, you're going to rotate and open up your hip as wide as possible. From here, you're going to rotate in with the hip into internal rotation. And when you get to your end range, you're going to start rotating that hip all the way behind and back and front. From there, we're going to reverse it, coming back and opening up that hip, rotating that same way we came, crossing the body and back down. And again, we're going to do 3 to 5 per side, nice and slow. And the one thing you're going to notice is that I am not rotating my torso. I'm not leaning over, staying nice and tall as I go through. And I'm breathing nice and slow. If, and this is probably going to happen to a lot of you, as we get to here and you start rotating, you might feel a pinch in that hip. A lot of times that just means that we don't have enough space in this joint as we go through. And all you need to do is modify your circle a little bit, where as we come up and you feel that pinch when you kind of rotate here, just bring your knee down a little bit, then do a little rotation and then back. Eventually that will improve over time as we go through. Now we're going to aim for one more, nice and slow as we go through. We're still breathing. Still staying nice and tall. There we go. And good. Perfect. Now we're going to switch sides, but I'm going to give you guys a different view, and I'm just going to use this dowel for balance. And same thing, if you wanted to use a dowel, you completely can. You can use 2 dowels as we go through. Same thing, big circle. With hip cars, I always tell people, think of your knee as a pencil, trying to draw a big circle to get the hip through all the ranges it's able to do. Also, check yourself as you go through to see if you're cheating. A couple points where people will cheat when they do their hip cars is as they get into, especially this area, they start to lean over, and that you can see how much more range I get if I lean over. That's why you want to stay nice and tall as we go through. And just breathe. Nice and slow. We're moving and grooving. Got one more after this one. Let's make sure you breathe throughout this whole cars routine. Perfect. Let's move on. All right, so we're now going to go into knee cars and ankle cars. So you can either put yourself into this position here, or you can have the other leg out straight, whatever feels comfortable. Now, what we're going to try to achieve is motion at the knee. So yes, our knee can go into extension and flexion, but it can also go into tibial rotation both externally and internally. So that's what we're going to try to achieve, and I want you to imagine that that shin bone is moving externally and internally. How we're going to do this, I have my right leg, my right hand goes through the right leg, left hand holds the right hand. We're going to pull that leg up. Toes are always going to be pointed towards us, so we lock out the ankle. If I have it out this way, it's not going to move as much. So we're going to drive the toes towards the face. We're going to think of rotating to the right. We're going to extend up, rotate in, back down, and now we're going to reverse it. Up, rotate out, and back down. Nice and slow, really focusing of imagining that tibia, that shin bone moving as we lead the toes into different directions. Down, back up, rotate, back down, back up. One more to finish up. And good. Now we're going to move on to ankle cars. Same position, but now your left hand holds the shin, right hand onto the forearm. And from there, we're drawing big circles with the ankle. Nice and slow. Aiming to inch every little space we have through that ankle joint. And switch directions. Nice and slow. We're breathing throughout this whole thing. And good. So now we're going to do the other side. So we're switching. Again, this leg can be bent or straight. We're going to go straight for this side. The left hand goes through the right leg, or left leg. The left hand holds the right hand, toes towards the face. You're going to rotate, extend, rotate in, back down, back up, rotate, down, back up, down. Remember, we're thinking of moving that shin bone. We're not flopping our foot around. We have that ankle locked out the entire time, and we're breathing. And good. From there, right hand on the shin, left hand on the forearm, and we're going into our ankle cars. Nice and slow. If you find any shaky parts of your ankle or any joint for that matter, you want to slow it down again. That just means that signal from your brain to the joint capsule itself is weak, and we need to strengthen it. And what we can do is go slower to get more information, more quality information. And switch directions. And continue to breathe.